Hello friends, happy Saturday. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is gonna be my 2024 TBR, the books that I hope to read throughout this year. And I have both physical books and then books that I wanna read on Kindle Unlimited. So I'm gonna have all of that today. So these are books that I guess already have in my possession, but you know, throughout the year, as many of you probably also do, I'm gonna be buying a lot more books. So who knows if I'm gonna be able to get the chance to get through all of these this year, but that's my hope and my dreams. So let's get into it. So I'm first gonna start off with fantasy, sci-fi, magical realism. That is my favorite type of genre, so we're gonna start off with that. I definitely have the most books from that genre, so let's get started with those. So on my physical TBR, these two books, Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows, these are actually the two books that I'm reading currently. So I'm like 75% of the way through Divine Rivals, and then I'm gonna read Ruthless Vows right after. Stay tuned for a reading vlog for that. That should be coming right after this video, probably like during the week or on next weekend. So if you are unaware of what these books are about, basically Divine Rivals goes through a story about this girl named Iris, which is kind of funny because my dog's name is Iris, and she has gone through some hardships in her life. There's a war going on in the background of what's going on. There's a lot of mythology involved, and she has this rival at work. She works at what is called the Oath Gazette. It's basically the local newspaper, and she has a rival at work, this guy. In the beginning of the book, they're fighting for a position that they both want in the newspaper, so that's where their rivalry stems from. And then the magical aspect comes in through these typewriters that connect them. And then I don't know what happens in the second book, but if you watch my reading vlog, I'll know, and then you will know as well. The next book that I want to read is another really famous YA fantasy that came out this year, or last year, and it was Powerless by Lauren Roberts. From what I've heard, it is another enemies to lovers, but this one's more like high stakes. I think the main male character in this book is a guy who goes after normal people, people without powers, and she just so happens to be one of those people, but he doesn't know. And so I think they fall in love, and he has no idea that she's a normal person, but he's supposed to be killing those type of people because he's royalty. And I think for his father, who is possibly the king of some kingdom or something, makes him basically the bounty hunter of normal people. So here, it's really good. And then the biggest book that I plan to read in 2024 is Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. So in 2023, I finished the entire ACOTAR and almost the entire Throne of Glass series besides the last book in that series, and this is that book. From all the booktubers that I've seen read this, they say this is the best way to tie together everything that happens in the Throne of Glass series in just like the best way possible. And as you can see, she's really chunky. She's 980 pages, so I think I was just too intimidated to finish it out in 2023. So I'm definitely gonna prioritize finishing this year, and I'm super excited. The next book, I actually know nothing about this book. I'll be totally honest. They were giving this out for free on campus when I was at school at Notre Dame, and I didn't even see it. One of my friends saw it, and she's like, oh my god, it's like sci-fi fantasy, you should totally, I got this for you, because they were giving it out for free. So shout out. I honestly completely forgot who gave this to me, but thank you. I appreciate it. It was definitely one of my close friends. I just don't remember which one. But thank you. And then last but not least, so this definitely isn't considered fantasy, but it's magical realism and romance, and it's definitely a really big book that came out in 2023 that, once again, a lot of really big booktubers liked, and they love the romance in this book. This is 7 Year Slip. If you haven't heard of this book, basically the main character, her name is Clementine. She lives in New York City, works for a book publisher, and she's very close to her grandma or her aunt, one of those. And she passes away, and she inherits her apartment that she has always said, like, throughout her life, this apartment is really magical, like you've never seen it, but you will, like, once you inherit this apartment or whatever. But I guess she never really believed her until she moved into that apartment, and the apartment is able to basically time travel 7 years in the past and then back to the present. And when she goes 7 years into the past, there's a guy who's living there who she falls in love with. So this is kind of giving me giving me time traveler's wife vibe. Going into my Kindle Unlimited sci-fi fantasy, what I plan to read, I have The Serpent and the Wings of Night. This, I was literally planning like so many different times throughout 2023 to read this, but I kind of was really against buying it because it originally came out in paperback. I really wanted the paperback. And then they only, at Barnes, only had it in hardcover. And so I was like, no, I refuse to buy this until they come out in paperback again, because I know they had it in paperback. So I just refused to buy it. But now that I have a Kindle, by the way, shout out to my boyfriend's parents. They got me a Kindle for Christmas and I have a bunch of Fourth Wing stickers on there now. But shout out to them for that, because now I can read The Serpent and the Wings of Night on Kindle Unlimited. And then the only other somewhat fantasy book that I potentially plan to read, which is by the same author, Carissa Broadbent, is Daughter of No Worlds. I heard that book is really good. Now, going into thriller, murder mystery. First of all, plan to read The Only One Left by Riley Sager. This is one of my Book of the Month purchases that I haven't gotten around to reading yet, and I've heard a million great things about Riley Sager. I think this book is about a girl who lives with her family in this like really big house, and everybody but her gets murdered. That is the only thing I know about this book, but I heard it's really good. The next book, which I've also heard a million great things about from literally every booktuber and everyone I know who's read this, is None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. What I know about this book, there's a podcaster who wants to interview people who have like really interesting lives, I think, and then this one girl wants to come on there saying a bunch of crazy things, and then a bunch of other crazy things happen. That's literally all I know about this book, but I heard it's really good, so I'm excited to read it. And then I plan to read The Silent Patient. I also bought this book last year and I haven't gotten around to reading it, but once again, this is a book that has been very popular for a really long time. And then going on to my Kindle Unlimited, Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alex Feeney. I think this is the thriller that I am personally most excited to read, just because I think the plot is really interesting and pretty original in my opinion. So there is this couple who is on their last leg of saving their marriage basically, and they're like, okay, let's go on this trip to the mountains together. This is gonna be our last like chance to rekindle what we had. If not, then we're getting divorced. And the man has facial blindness. I'm not 100% sure what that means, but all I know is that he can't recognize faces for some reason, including his own. And yeah, a bunch of crazy stuff happens, just like in all those other books. And then last but not least, The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. I actually know a lot of people in my life personally who have read this book and had a lot of great things to say. Like I was just talking to my boyfriend's sister and she was talking about how she really liked this book. I think it's about a woman who just got out of jail and she is trying to take any job that she can just to, you know, make ends meet. And she gets a job being a housemaid for a couple where the wife in the scenario is just really off. Like a bunch of crazy things happen around her, and I guess she can't go into her room to go see her. Like the maid can't go into the wife's room to see her, even though she's always just like trapped inside the room for some reason, like she's ill. But that is all I know. Now, on to romance. I guess I could have put 7 Year Slip in there, but I'm just gonna, whatever. So there's only 2 romance books that as of right now I'm planning to read for 2024, and they're both on my Kindle. So I have The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. This book is about a guy who is, I guess, an international, you know, well-known celebrity, and he has a stalker. And he actually needs to go visit his mom because she's ill, and to not worry her, stress her out, potentially make her more ill, he is secretly hiring a bodyguard to protect himself from the stalker. And in order to keep it hidden that he has a bodyguard, he hires a female bodyguard and pretends to date her. So it's a fake dating trope. They have to, you know, fake it for the family, and that's that. The other romance book that I plan to read is Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher. This book is about, I think, childhood friends who had a falling out, or potentially exes who had a falling out, and he still keeps up with her and they have to work together. He's a real estate agent and she is an interior designer, so they have to work on like projects together in order to sell these houses and potentially fall back in love. And yeah, that's it. And then last but not least, I have 2 nonfiction books that I plan to read this year. And honestly, hopefully I read more. That's definitely my goal, but I plan on reading 2 memoirs. I want to read Everything I Know About Not Parties, Dates, Friends, Jobs, Life, Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. So this is a memoir of an award-winning author, screenwriter, and journalist based in London, and it's basically, from what I know, a bunch of stories about her life where she just, you know, focuses on the things that she's learned throughout her 20s as like a young woman. And I think as someone who is a young woman in her 20s, I'm 22, there's still so much that I have to learn in terms of like my priorities and the things that I really pay attention to within my life. You live and you learn, but you also need to learn to prioritize the right things in your life. And I think this book talks about how you should prioritize friendships and how important those are, whether, you know, people come and go in your life. A lot of my friends are actually saying they want to read this too, so maybe we'll read it together. And last, but certainly not least, Miss Britney Spears. I want to read The Woman in Me, her memoir that just talks about all the crazy things that she went through being such a big celebrity, starting so young, who basically had her life controlled by Hollywood, the paparazzis, and just basically being emotionally abused and mentally in so many ways because of the things that she went through and everything she had to endure from her, you know, time as a pop star, her time in her conservatorship, and how everyone in her life wanted to control her. So I'm really excited to just learn more about that and how horrible Hollywood can really be. But anyway, that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate you being here. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.